through their respective exhibits and installations one by one on the last day of the exhibition. It allows an intimate engagement with the participating designers from various domains through dialogue and discourse. For our audience joining us from the live stream, I request you to please share the link with all your contacts to get them to be a part of this ceremony.
Yeah, and now we will begin with an interpretive movement piece, an experimental medley of classical movements accompanied by global and Hindustani melodies. The performance will be led by one of our participating designers, Varundhari Prasad, who is a disciple of Guru Gita Chandra. She will be supported by the vocalist Savitera Gopal, and will be joined towards the end by another one of the participating designers, Vidya Gupta, who is also a Hindustani vocalist. To give short keys, they will invoke the four domains of design exhibited here, which are architecture and habitat design, industrial and product design, textile and apparel design, and graphic and communication design. And as they dance, there will be connections across them.
Thank you, and please for that captivating performance. We now begin. We are now like to begin with the closing walk, which will begin from the sunken courtyard outside. So I request all our attendees to please move there to the exhibition by In Practice.
अभी हम यहाँ पे स्टार्ट करेंगे
You come this side as well, please. Yeah.
All right, so we'll begin now from the architecture and habitat design domain. We have In Practice representing which we have Parth Patel with us.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you to Design by Design to present us our work here, especially Chisti sir also. Myself, Parth Patel, I am an architect urban designer. I am a co-founder of In Practice along with the three architects. Our studio based in Ahmedabad, and we are mainly focusing on the architecture, urban design, and the interior designing. Basically, in practice, is accommodating the conditions of daily living in the present time by means of material light and spatial explanations. Where in is the symbolic of the present time, and the practice is the method of the blue architecture. In practice is a design studio which is focusing on non-linear design approach with the intended solutions. For each project, the inquiry start with the what lies at the core of the project's purpose, shapes its architecture, economics, and the social values. The process involves the rigorous the research for the innovations, materials, and applications also. Light is the primary element of the core of the practicing. We often say many times in our office or like as well as the clients also. The architecture like without the light, it's like Sangeet without the yeah. So basically here like these two installations like we are showing the bottom installation we are showing the 9 projects. So basically from the like architecture to interiors and as well as the design also. Basically we are maximum try to explore as much as the material and try to make sure light to inside the every not every spaces but try to like the important spaces like the living spaces and as well as the some skylights from the toilets or like the other amenities also. And there are like the this is the one of the projects in Old City. There is like the Vasna Gram. So this is like the total. These houses are made in like the concrete exposed concrete also. And there is like the one of the another sectional models we made for the roof walls. So that is like the totally we use actually the debris bricks inside that project. And you can see the top installations that is like we try to achieve the skylight actually in from our one of the projects. So these are like the same size of the actually the skylight inside the house. We can see in these pictures also. And the four side right now we are putting the fabric to showcase our base projects photographs also. Yeah. Thank you.
So as we move around, we encourage the audience to ask questions and interact with the designer. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions? Begin.
I have one. So, as we can see, your practice has 4 partners, which is the most that we've had amongst all the practitioners that have come here for the design for the exhibition, right? So, how, especially as young practitioners, when one wants to grasp a hold on all the aspects of how design comes about, how do you negotiate between the ideas, the force of ideas that are guiding these 4 individuals, and how does the design process turn out?
Yeah, I think this is like I can say like it's not a complicated, but how we are starting basically like the whatever the projects are coming, we are just like the brainwash from the each and every like the 4 of us are like doing the individual brainwash, and then we are just discussing on the one table. We are coming on the one page, like how we will go with that, along with the client brief, and along with the definitely the material palettes and the along with the main ideas. Even the definitely, and also we are using the physical models actually in our office. We have our own workshop inside our studio. So basically, we are not making the we are actually making the physical models in the real materials. Like you can say like the concrete real materials. This is not on. These are like the design process models actually. It's not like the final models made for the design by design period, something like that. So this is the like the but idea is like we will sit together and we will just narrow down our ideas and we will discuss to each other, and then we finalize which is the best for this project, or like it is a suitable for the client also. So that is the main idea.
Thank you, God. Any more questions?
I'll take that. We were talking 15-20 minutes ago about the projects. As a brief, I mean, the only thing that's actually getting me curious is about how the buildings, the spaces you're making have an aesthetic. the aesthetic.
Yeah.
So, would you say that it's kind of geographically influenced by Gujarat or where you building mostly? For example, if you would build something outside the state, it would have a different kind of a theme in terms of concepts, in terms of how you use the materials. So, if it would be different, or you would try to achieve something similar. Is it just similar to the kind of language you follow?
Yeah, so basically not exactly, so is it not necessary like every time we are using a repetitive, I'm not saying like we are not using a repetitive material, definitely we are using a repetitive material, but we are, for example, like some house we are making a exposed concrete, so then we are also trying to, can we do like the pigmented concrete or like the rammed concrete also. We are right now, we are one of the house we are making the rammed concrete actually. So we are trying to achieve those kind of materiality inside the house. From the definitely the aesthetical is the that is the idea. But when you are changing the material, so automatically the inside the environment automatically will change. Somehow coolness, somehow aesthetically. It is also like the helping to this actually.
Thank you. Any more questions or? Okay, thank you. Okay, yes.
You mentioned about exposed concrete, within this thing, but it looks like actually a small infill, which is a different color. So I don't know how it works actually.
Can you put your
Sorry.
the mic here?
No, I was asking about the exposed concrete, which he had mentioned. Yeah. For this finish, but
In the context,
it looks like a infill actually.
So basically, what we thought for these houses actually, because this is a, you can see that there are not as much space for for working for the laymen and for them. But contextually, I can say definitely it will look like different compared to the neighborhoods, definitely. But mainly our practice is focusing on the modernism and little bit on that. So,
This question is not about that. Please explain the fact that this was actually an isolated plot.
no,
That's what is getting.
this is not isolated plot. Actually, whatever you can see the next plot, that is like the empty plot actually. Near that house. Near that house. That is like actually the empty plot actually. You can see in the second image. This one. This one is like that. This is like the street. The street is like this. And this is the like the empty plot actually. They don't have a like the.
That
Right now we are not
is in the
building
center
those.
of the road. That is in the
Yeah.
center of the road.
No, that is
No,
not.
no, no,
It became a center.
For that as well.
It's not supposed to be one. That's how the streets in the old
No,
city.
this is not a property of these houses. This is like a different owner. So they are making like the after some time or like the. So actually, while we are like constructing on these houses, that time like this one they already do.
Sorry, I didn't get your name.
Part.
There are three partners, he's just one of them.
Four
Four parts.
Four sets.
I don't think they can come to
My question is, hello. My question is how four of you agree for something. I mean, it is really tough to agree for so four people agree
How
on
do you work
something.
together?
Yeah. So I already explained.
Repeat it, please.
Yeah. So I already mentioned like whenever the clients are coming basically. So whatever we have made, okay. So four of us are like the, I can say, first we will do a brainstorming in terms of like the design and all, and then after we will discuss to each other like on the one single matter.
Every person is part of the design process. Otherwise, I have seen in lot of practices, this kind of practices, there is entire process. Somebody does some part, somebody does some part, and somebody does some part, and everybody is in sync. and obviously entire narration is one. So you are telling that everybody participates in everything.
Not in part, for the design part, we will talk to each other and then whatever the small details we will do individually. But for the conceptually, for the materiality, for the idea level, those things we will do together. And then after the one, people are driving the whole process. Something like that.
That means for every project you will have this kind of direction, different directions. Or you have some philosophy for the office itself, which everybody follows.
So basically, like, not like that way, but so every project we are trying to do, no, not as something else, but like as much as try to the four ideas coming together. That is the idea actually. The main idea is like the our four combinations because whatever the expertise are like different. I am a urban designer actually. One of the guy did the masters from the architecture. So whatever that individuals specialities are helping to advance in the development.
Amalgamating different systems.
Thank you, Raj. We move on to Studio Bardo. So we have Kshitij and Nikita from Studio Bardo. But we only have Kshitij.
Hello everyone, I'm Kshitij from Studio Bardo. We work in the Kumaon region of the Indian Himalayas in Almora. Through this exhibition, we have tried to bring the context that we work in because that is something which is very crucial for our village. So starting from the pine tree branches to the wood that we have used for the exhibition to all the samples that you see here, we try to bring a whiff of the mountains. Mountains provide a lot, at the same time it doesn't. So we have stone, we have soil, we have wood, everything else comes from outside. So these are the materials that we have tried to showcase. Then moving on to the architectural part, the projects that we have showcased sort of tells the journey that we have been through. Starting from the vernacular part, what we learned, can we still bring that into our projects? What are the challenges that this journey sort of takes you there? So the first part, the first panel that you see is the vernacular. We got the opportunity to restore some of the very old houses in Koot, which is a small village near Almora. And it was a challenging thing that how to make that old architecture still relevant and to make those old houses habitable. The second panel shows our own house, which this one.
Can you come ahead?
Which we did around 2 years back, and all that we learned at that time, the importance of sunlight, the importance of smaller spaces, segregation, how to feel the day as it moves to the entire house. What part of the sunlight should come here, so that's what we have tried to do through our own house. The third panel shows the extreme contextual challenges, the steep sides, and how to deal with them. Architecture-wise, you can always say that so much use of metal and steel may look alien, and it might not be contextual at the same time, but given the steep sides that we have, without disturbing a lot of the contours, without disturbing a lot of the context, we have tried to achieve these results. Then the last project that is on the panel, that is our ongoing project and it is very dear to our hearts. It's an old, almost 100-year-old house which was almost falling apart. And the third generation of the original owners, they came to us and said that we want to reclaim this house and we want to live in it. We want to pass on this legacy to our children. So we have tried to salvage as much possible as we could from the original house. We have tried to keep original windows, we have tried to keep original stone, individual fenestrations, and the entire process we have documented through that panel. And then to make the house habitable in the modern times, we have tried to add modern spaces and to bring the scale of the house for a modern day. So these are the 4 panels that sort of tells you this journey.
I have a question. So, what are the kind of clients that you've met with in your journey so far? What is the profile of these people?
It's a very good question because I can divide the client profile exactly with the COVID. Before COVID, pre-COVID, we were working with a lot of clients who were about to retire. They wanted to move to the mountains. They were college professors, they were IAS people, and they had a dream of a British house. They wanted to replicate a British house in the mountains. After COVID, our client profile immediately shifted. Now we are working with young couples between 30 and 45. These are the people who said we can work from anywhere we want. We don't want to make the first house in a city. We don't want to make an apartment in Delhi. We will put that same money in the mountains and we'll make a house for ourselves. So these are the people who are now planning to bring their first kid in these homes. And that's, I would say we are privileged to do houses for the same age profile as us.
Now, I see there are 2 situations here. One is you have done one house for yourself. So how do you find that client different from what other clients have?
We don't fight with our clients that much. The amount me and my wife fought for this house. That was one. Second, in our own house, we tried to do all the experiments that we could. To be honest, our skylights still leak. Every monsoon, we put up buckets beneath the skylights because we tried to do them. They worked to some extent, they didn't work. We cannot provide that to our clients. So we have made peace with a lot of things that we did. We really love them, but there are some things which we can always aspire to give to our clients, those experiments, but they may take 1 out of 10 that we propose to them, but not all. Like in our house, we don't have railings. So the first question the clients or clients' parents ask, what will happen if you have a toddler in the house? Like the day we were doing our Grab Pravesh, so there was a clear divide. Everybody under 30, great house. Everybody above 50. It's not a kid-friendly house, it's not an old age-friendly house. You have made it for yourself. You are in a very, I would say, selfish as a word that came up. But yeah, we can't do that to our clients. So that's one of the biggest differences.
But what kind of expectations do the clients have? Do they want to go with vernacular or more modern?
And if I can just ask you that,
Yeah.
the question.
Yeah.
And as an extension to that question, how do you then try to negotiate with the client about the kind of sensitivities that you have versus the aspirations that they have?
Okay, so the first part. We are trying to bring vernacular in small parts. We can't bring the entire vernacular because the kind of skill that is required to do the whole vernacular, the kind of materials that are required. For example, if you come to the mountains, you come to the Kumaon, a stone house is a vernacular house. Stone is not available anymore. Government has banned it. It's very costly, and the skills required to do a stone house are no longer there. So we always say, okay, let's do a highlight wall, which is a stone. We use the stone which was mined from your own plot, and that's how we do that. So, same thing for carving. We can do small things of carving, or we can use the circulation of the old houses. So, in the Kumaon region, the kitchen becomes the center of the house. It's the warmest space. We try to achieve that. That the kitchen is not relegated to one side of the house, it becomes the core of the house. It becomes the center of the house in the sense that each and every room opens into the kitchen, which used to happen in the old Kumaoni houses. So, vernacular can be physical or it can be sort of conceptual. So, if we are not able to do physical, we always try to do conceptual. Aspirations versus what is achievable, right?
What you envision, your sensitivity.
Okay. So our own house plays a great role in that because a lot of sensitivities that we have. I'll take a small example. Privacy. The amount of glass that we have in our house. We always say to our clients that you are building a house which is in middle of a jungle almost. There are so many trees around that you need not wall yourself in. You can afford to have spaces which have very big windows. And do play with a sense of privacy that not all bathrooms need to be, say, 100% brick and mortar with a small window which is just meant for ventilation. You can have, if you are going to second floor, nobody can look in. It will be only you who is looking out. So our own house plays a great role, and it's a long discourse. We start, say, if it takes around almost 3 months for a design discourse, we start with an idea, then we keep hammering on it. Look, this is what we have done at this place, this is what we have done at this place, and at the end of the day, we might not achieve 100%, but we can achieve, say, 50%.
Thank you, Shilton. Okay, one more question.
So you are working in a very high seismic sort of zone. So what is your approach to earthquake engineering? Do you do it like empirically, or is it calculated, or and how do you draw the line when you're making an extension to an old structure? What is the philosophy of earthquake engineering that you sort of incorporate?
If we are doing a new house, we use frame structure mostly, and that we get designed as per NBC Zone 5 regulations with the amount of steel that goes in, all the strengths, wind loads, earthquake loads. So it comes through, I think, computer modeling to us. We have proper civil engineers whom we hire to design that. At the same time, there are very simple postulates that we keep in mind. That we always try to go with sloping roofs which are lightweight, which doesn't use any heavy material. So we keep the center of mass as low as possible. We refrain from construction on loose soil. We try to look for proper strata. And we still go with old mystery kind of knowledge base key. When they say, okay, for last 100 years or say last 50 years, we haven't seen any slippage in this area, we give that advice to the clients. Don't build here or build here. And most of the time they do listen to us. There have been cases in which we have point blank refused 2 projects because we didn't feel it's a safe project. We started the discourse, we visited the site, we felt that we did a site report, okay, we can't do it. So we have done that. And keeping these postulates in mind that keep the center of mass as low as possible. As we go up, reduce the weight of the entire structure, have proper foundations. That does help in earthquake zone style of construction.
Yeah, quick one.
One is, what you show in the model versus what this elevation is. This is really a typical Mahogany elevation, but this is looking very different. But the second thing I wanted to ask is, where is the kitchen here now?
Okay. So from this was my attempt to translate the vernacular study that we did into something which attracts everybody and which people can actually play with. So we have clients who visit the office, we sometimes have kids. So this doesn't exactly match this because we try to simplify and try to bring it in a 3D model format. So 3D model format has its own limitations. There are certain details we can't do in it. There's a limit to the scale that I can. So that's why it looks a little bit different. So I tried to use all the elements that I had into a very small compact structure. So that's why it looks different. That is one. In this house, kitchen is in the middle floor. Here. Again, that's a very Kumaoni thing that you don't have kitchen on the ground floor. You have the kitchen in the first floor. On the ground floor is goat, which is used for animals. So this is the ground floor plan, but you don't have the kitchen in this plan. The kitchen is in the middle. And then we have one bedroom in the attic, which is in the So this is the middle floor here. This is the kitchen. Here is the kitchen.
I think we can't have that kind of discussion. It's not a jury.
Okay, thank you, Kshitij. Let's proceed inside.
Yeah. The mic is not okay.
Alright, next we have studio area.
It was such a amazing experience for me because first time we've exhibited and trying to create also what we do and what we really do in our routine in our studio. So I'm Mohan. I'm founder of this whole place, this whole business, this whole part what we do there. It started from just randomly I started making and I wanted to make everyday in my everyday life. And so all these sculptures, all these products, it just came from my experimentation. So from my college time to the time when I started this from scratch by making everyday things from my room, then we shifted to a place, like a bigger place, like a bigger room, and then now we have a studio where I can everyday experiment and make new things. And whatever we whatever comes out nicely or we feel like that people will be loving to buy. By that time we start selling things. So mostly we are a multidisciplinary design studio doing inside one roof, be it garments, be it products from all the materials. We experiment all the materials. We do R&D for different brands. We develop their products. We develop their garments. So we right now we have a team of almost 20 people. Not everyone is having a professional design degree or any of the degrees, but the whole studio's structure is based on that you come up with the intent and we'll give you the content. That's how the whole system is working in our place. Anyone can come, join, whatever they want to make, they can use our resources because those resources also I've got by working with people, by asking what I need and by giving whatever I have to offer. So this is what it is about the studio tenure.
If I could just ask everyone in the gallery to speak a little softly so that we can hear our designer here speak. Thank you. So, I'd like to begin by asking you about your relationship with wood. You seem to have quite a collection of wooden designs here. Could you tell us a little bit about what you think of the material and how you go about choosing your specific timbers?
So this whole journey started when in my college, whatever leftover wood people used to throw because I never bought any wood when I was in college. So whatever leftover small pieces people used to throw outside the lab. So all those pieces I used to pick, and that's why if you see half the pieces make
So the story of these 31 sculptures were there. I was making each sculpture in a day. On the month of the October, because people were doing Inktober, I was more happy to do something with what I really want to do. So I took a challenge where I was making every day one sculpture with wood. So whatever leftover wood was there in front of me, I randomly started making something and my whole process. So I teach design as well. So the process what I follow when I teach design, when I study design, is thinking while making. So at the same time, this whole I use multiple types of wood. I just consider wood as like a material. Whenever I touch the wood, when I start making something, it just tells a story, and the same thing I can convert it to. Or like whatever I can dream of, or when I touch the wood or when I imagine something. So I just as a designer and as a maker, this whole process revolves around my head that how and what it's going to be. So the same relation happens with wood.
Thank you. Does anyone in the audience have a question? Preferably someone in the back.
You say something about this circular installation. How did you fabricate it?
I randomly thought of, so our initial plan of making a shelf where I can keep my objects. So I had a lot of objects in my place. Then I thought of not making a regular slab, like a regular shelf. We wanted to express something on our own, like very fluid, very organic, and very moldable. The way I get molded in the situation. The same way the circle is containing different emotions and different forms fitting into each other, and then so many things that
I would need it, not
no, so it was just like very flexible plywood, but treated with some small molds with all the leftover wood. So these are also like half the pieces are leftover from our place. We wanted to use all the leftover material which we have after producing products from the exploration we have.
So, in the previous conversation that we had, you explained how in whatever time you like to travel to places and like finding people in order to share knowledge and gain knowledge. So, I was hoping you could share your insights on that as a process of learning more and creating more.
Yeah, so I started teaching once after my faculty asked me to teach making. The students are not touching materials or using tools. So if you could just teach them how to use them, or how to make something out of materials. So at that time I realized that whatever I was thinking about the materials or sharing my thoughts. So the only thing I started doing, I picked up the material and started making something. So that gave me the whole thought process, creating my own way of working and approaching materials, approaching students also, and people whoever wants to make something. That the intent is they are very scared about touching the material because they just think that it's not our job. This is what we cannot do. It's a job of someone else. We should not adapt it, or will take time. And that time, the moment you start using the materials, the time is something your interest can remove. If you are interested in something, you will be able to do it right now, right here. You don't need 10 years of experience to make something whatever is here. It can turn into something overnight. So I was traveling to multiple places to teach the same making I am doing here. Last year I realized something I want to connect all those makers who all are makers by heart, but they don't have some intent, or they don't know how to make something, or they don't know where to go if they want to make something. So I wanted to start an organization, Makers Connect, where makers can meet. The whole concept of that Makers Connect is whatever you have, you offer, whatever you want, you need to ask. So that simple conversation can change the whole thing, like the whole process of whatever we really want. We just need to ask and ask the right person. So connecting all those people at one place where whatever people would be asking or like dreaming of like any random day, they can ask someone who's there and they can help them. And whatever they have in return, they can just offer that I have this and I want this. And it's going to be very simple for, and that's how I grown up. Like whatever I wanted, I just asked and asked the right people. And whatever I had, like I was really open about offering it to anyone whoever is in need. That need is the something like, and I was really open about this whole thought that intent is really important before the content. We think about so much about the content that we don't have these resources. How can we be the carpenter or like a tailor or like a designer or something? So it's just like if you want to be, you can ask someone, they can help you. Or like you can just start randomly. You don't need to be a carpenter to work with wood. A very basic thing, and that's what I realized because I from the question I'm like by the degree and the educational qualification, fashion and lifestyle product designer from it. But I've never like restricted myself. I work with all the different random materials. Like today also when I want to make something or like do something, I really don't think twice. I just do it, and if I'm not happy with it or like if it's not working, I redo it. There's no, because it was my choice to do this, and all the consequences, right or wrong, is mine. Like I have to own it. And a platform will give all the different people, that's the connection of like connecting the people and then sharing the thoughts. So it's just about celebrating the
Thank you, Mohan. With that, we would move to the next exhibition, Studio ID, and with all the picture. So, representing Studio ID, we have Natasha Sood.
Practicing for over 10 years now, and in residential sector I've been working for around 7 years. So after working for 7 years in residential, I have really realized that in residence it's very, very important that the occupants' personality, taste, culture, style is incorporated into their house, homes, and they should feel at home, and it should not look like someone else's design, it should look like their own. Walls that your personality should depict your house. So with these buttons, we take them, and so that you can actually understand what you like and what you don't like. Because as designers, we are trained to imagine
Does anyone in the audience have a question? Okay.
So I have a question. How do you take care of that? What are the questions, or how do you get that to that point? That this client needs this.
So the person who's asking this question is not this one. The person who's asking this question.
She is my friend, so she knows me, but not everybody.
So this is his house which I designed. So he was a single sole resident of this house in the bachelor and I designed it. So he said that I really wanted a house where I can, entertain my friends, and I want something very minimal, something, like which reminds me of some old times, and nothing too flashy, nothing too over the top. But I want a space which is there for my friends, for me to enjoy. So that's how I have designed the space for him, as he's asking. So I really try to ask these questions to my clients as to what is your daily routine, what do you do every day from morning to evening, what are your culture, what are your beliefs, what do you aspire to be we want to travel, etc., etc. And these small little things really help us make a home for them, which is, which they want to cherish for many years to come.
So my question is that at what point in your education or practice did you realize that one needs to break away from the autonomy that designers usually exercise and that the client or the user needs to be brought in as a co-author in the project? And also what led to that realization?
I think this realization happened when I was designing my own home, and I realized that it is very important that what I am designing is very important because my house, let's assume my room, I need a specific thing happening in my room. I like this, so I need a specific item in my room, and it's very important to me. And slowly, when I was designing for friends and all, I realized there are few essential parts of their lifestyle which is very important to them, and that should not be left out. That's what which led for me to decide that now moving forward, this is a very important aspect to ask every client I would have in future. And moving forward, this should be the key aspect of designing anything which I would have.
I want to know, is this your normal process with the clients? Since you're doing residential, I suppose you have more engagement with them. Is this your normal process? How do you really engage with them?
So we don't do exactly this. This is a more complicated, more of a prototype for everyone to actually experience it. But we generally, what we do, we create a mood board of different things, so they can understand whether they like a wallpaper, or do they like something more simpler, or do they like something a little bit more happy. So we present them with some images and mood boards for them to understand what is their style. Because again, in residential, you have to be very engaging, and every little item and every little thing, even a side table where you keep your phone, very important. So small little things are very important in these things. So we present them with multiple options and ask them to pick and choose so that they understand their style more as the process goes.
So, do you think we should provide to the clients what they want, or they should be provided what they need?
I think functionality is very important. So it is very important what the client needs. It should be the most priority, and then the wants can be adjusted. Functionality, the design is for this action.
Thank you, Natasha. Moving on to the next exhibit, we have Ashita Singh from Bio.
Hi everyone, I'm Ashita Singh. I'm the founder of Pebble Studio. Firstly, I would like to thank the designer design for giving me this opportunity. It really was a big feeling to be exhibited over here. I run a design studio in Noida where we are upcycling textile waste through handloom weaving and handcrafted techniques. Whenever we talk about handloom, what comes to our mind is that fabric. And through Pebble, we are trying to break those conventional norms of textile design and think beyond. And not only just focus on creating fabrics to wear, but also creating 3D structures. So this installation is called Whispers to the Moon. And also shows that even in the time of where technology is taking over, how handloom still remains as a powerful medium, and we can innovate so much. So the installation is done in 3 parts. If you look at the top, this is a 3D structure, fan-like structure that was woven on handloom, a traditional handloom. On the British block structure, we have not cut it anywhere or anything. It came out of the loom and it opened up in 6 parts. And as you see, the second part of the installation, these are the 2 jackets that we have displayed over here. It also represents the weavers in the studio talking to each other, discussing their journey, their struggles, their happy moments over a cup of tea. And the fabrics that you see over there, it's actually woven from the waste our waste, which means it's double upcycle. We are following double circularity in our studio. Even when we upcycle textiles and then make pieces out of it, we generate some scrap. So annually we collect such textiles and then weave it together to create more special pieces. I would also like to highlight this too that we have done. This is also just a piece of fabric that has been woven on the hand loom. In a double plot weave structure, we have inserted bamboos and we have just curled up the fabric together to make it a stool. So yes, the idea is whenever you think of handloom next, you think of something that could be done beyond just the fabric, and just paying a role to the weavers and trying to provide the benefit clusters by introducing pieces along. Thank you.
Any questions? So you are. Okay, great.
I was wondering about the style of the code. Is there a specific style or inspiration or geography that you selected and why for this?
So when we were designing this jacket, we really wanted to, it was extreme windows that was going on, and we wanted to create a circular kind of a structure where like it breaks in a way that it kind of gives you a hug. It's the warmth that you feel from the weavers, and it's that relationship that we wanted to build in our silhouettes. So our silhouettes that have been designed are designed in such a way that you will always feel the warmth from our studio and a lot of love.
Through your entire narration, we could not understand what kind of work you are doing. And I mean, as a concept, that's fine. But what kind of work are you doing which we can
So I run this studio called Headbuns. It's based out of Noida, where we are upcycling fabric waste through handcrafted techniques like handloom weaving and hand embroidery. The idea is to introduce waste as a raw material to these artisans so that they can revive their craft. Under Fairwell, we also run this initiative called Consciously Together, where we collaborate with design houses, architects, anybody and everybody, where we create pieces together in collaboration. So yeah, that's the idea. We just want to make a bigger social and environmental impact.
So, would you, as I understand, there is obviously a whole bit of innovation that has gone into it. Would you say that that is something that your studio actively tries to pursue, innovation, and rather than constantly practicing certain beliefs as most practices do?
So I believe where I find the difference between other practices and our practices is that we have handlooms that are in-house. So every day there is like weavers are not just weaving the fabric, they are more like artists and designers. And we keep discussing, we keep weaving together, and there's a constant collaboration that goes on with the artisans in the studio, and hence the innovation that we're able to see. So we're not restricted to creating something that is, maybe mass reusable or reproducible in that sense, but we are focused on showing and innovating with handloom that nobody could imagine. So that's the ideology behind the studio.
I'm familiar with that. I just was wondering, do you have Instagram that we can follow because the process to a lot of people?
Yes, we do have an Instagram account and website. It's by the name of Pagan Studio. We have also put the barcodes you can scan and follow us. And we do post a lot about our process and everything that goes behind the studio. people to get an understanding.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Next, we have Terra Firma. Representing Terra Firma, we have Dr. Bafna and Hedrat Mujib.
Hello. Hi everyone, I hope you're all having a good time. Thank you to Jishti sir and Design by Design for giving us this wonderful space to exhibit our work. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how we think, what kind of work we do, and how we go about our process. So India has a lot of influence from Western countries in a lot of different aspects, and architecture is one of them. So we believe that since India is so culturally rich, there is so much heritage that the context in India becomes very important. The climate is also different. So as architects, we believe that our main problem area or where we need to focus is to actually just respond to the context, the climate, and the people who are going to use any space, any structure that you make. So making anything appropriate is what excites us, and that is what we work towards every day, and that is what is going to make us move away from just glass facades and shiny architecture.
Hello everyone, I am Hitarth and this is my partner Netra. We are basically very fortunate to be working in Ahmedabad, which is like the hub of architecture, and we are again more fortunate that we could make our own studio. So I'll just take you through one project which actually explains this narrative which she said in a more detailed way. So this is our studio, which is electric in nature, and it spills out onto a very beautiful. This building is actually on the outskirts of Ahmedabad, and it is not like in the center of the city. So it is very green all around, and we generally enjoy a lot of bird watching and discussions and brainstorming, which happens mostly outside our studio. So that is where our lives are. Secondly, it is on top of a building, which is our home. So in that case, we are very fortunate that we just have to climb a stair to reach our office and climb back down, and we save approximately an hour or an hour and a half of commute and spend our lives in this space, which is the quality which we enjoy about the building. Talking about the house, we understand, we are a family of four, and we understand each other very well, in the sense that the plan is basically developed out of our lifestyles and how we sort of behave. So all of us are basically working people. So in the day, most of us are out, and only in the weekends or in the evenings we come together as a family and enjoy that time as socially, basically. So this entire space is basically a reflection of how we live. So the heart of this space is a living room, which we like to call it as a social space, which is directly connected to the dining area, and basically have two rooms above. One is this big and the other is this big. So they are completely diagonally opposite to each other, and they are extremely private. So we enjoy perks of both spaces, the social space and the private space. And we've also done a few responses based on this lifestyle. I think Netra can elaborate more.
So climatically, this part which you see as the double volume, which is the social space, is oriented towards north and east. So what that does is the social space almost never heats up because the south and the west part, they always protect it, and it forms a buffer for all the heat gaining that happens majorly on that side. And we use the bedrooms during the night, so by that time we have a good ventilation that cools down the room. So for every building or anything that we do, climate becomes a very important factor, such that all the spaces should cool down as and when required or as per their use. Like for example, this skylight, it helps in pulling up the hot air and cooling the space below. So we can go on about different details about the kind of openings that we have in this house. Like for example, bigger openings on the north and east side, and much smaller openings on the south and the west side. These two are two other projects. This one is a law office that we've done in Ahmedabad, and here, since the office space and the site was very tight, we've used metal to make most of our furniture, like the main table or the employee table or any of the conference spaces, keep the office very light and not feel that the space is small. Coming to the last project, which is South Face. This is an office building that we're making out of metal in Ahmedabad. So the core structure is going to be metal, and that's going to be a new exploration for us. Also, if you see, all the facades are very different. The north facade is almost completely open, so that we get good north light from there. The south facade has a lot of breeze blocks to shade the building and just take in the air from there. So this is how we go about every project, where the context and the climate becomes the core of how we think and how we strategize. Thank you, that'll be our time.
Thank you. Okay, let me ask you a question. So you have spoken about your designs in really functional terms in quite some detail, as we all saw. Could you tell us a little bit about where you find your inspiration for your expressions?
Alright, so for example, if you see the different kinds of openings that we have used in this entire house, they come a lot from the side that the window is facing. For example, here on the north facade, these two windows are huge and they are made of metal. So we can open them up completely, and it provides very sleek metal members to maximize our view. And on the western side and south side, we have more of wooden windows, such that and they're very small, was on that side to cut out the sunlight. So a lot of it also comes directly from utility. For example, if we have a longer southern slope on this side, is because we want to put solar panels on that side, and that's why we have a smaller roof. So instead of making it equal, we've kept it unequal like that. So a lot of expression also just comes from how we're planning to use it.
All the utilitarian things, we have a keen eye, keen things to look out for how the entire overall picture is turning out to be, and not just utilitarian design.
Those are all the questions.
So it's like a human trapped in that entire, in the streets, and it's just like you living in a dilemma. You just set free. So there are some 140 pockets that you stitched, and they all gather on each sides, which is also very relevant in my entire collection. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, let me begin with a question about maybe the one thing here that's not exactly a part of your design, which is the mannequin.
I had it.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about it and generally how you go about do mannequins play a role in factory and what do you think in general?
I mean, mannequins don't really play a role. I mean, I can't have a live model here, so of course it's a mannequin. But live models also, I try and show a little bit of ingenuity wherever I can. But that doesn't really sell. So that's the harsh reality.
I would like to say, here your mannequin is actually adding so much value to the whole thing. If you didn't have this black thing here,
and that's why I didn't want to buy.
Absolutely, captivating. So here it's very important, this mannequin, to display our creation. Very nice.
Yes, does anyone have anything else to say?
Apparently, one thing that stood out to me in your exhibit was the heart that you have created. So you had two versions of it. One was kept there and one was there. So the question here is, since majority of your practice is around pockets and the entire thing that you have developed is around pockets. Where was the idea of heart? Where did it come from? And is it like, did you make it or did the brand make it in some way?
I mean, of course, it's made by my karigars according to my design and stuff, but the heart comes from my partner in life. I mean, the brand was created because I moved from Calcutta to Bombay. If it wasn't him, I wouldn't have left my job. I was working for 7 years at a couture house, and I think I would have just carried that on all my life. So it represents him and it had traveled between Calcutta and Bombay and traditions and modernity. And the entire brand doesn't really have pockets, but it has a lot of gathers because I like to play with volumes, and I think India does not need to see the ideal body type, we can define it. So, yeah.
We have Soumya Mittal representing from NT.
Hi everyone, I'm Soumya and I run this design studio for From 2. A lot of work presented here is actually my personal work and also work in my studio. But it's a lot of different aspects about India, like population, pollution, religion, stuff you read in the papers every day. And what I've tried to do here is represent it visually in a more engaging way. This is not generally how you see data. A lot of people ask me where you get this from. These are all reports which are periodically published by the Indian government. But because they're so badly designed, it's not, nobody reads it and it's not very engaging. So each piece here is a different report, which is redesigned in a way that people read it and they engage with it. So yeah, like the Missing Women of India, for example, is a piece missing in the past years. And you can read what you want. Today is a different aspect of our country, and it's just done to represent data in a more visually engaging manner.
I'll start with the questions, I guess. So, Soumya, what role does representation, because there's clearly a very powerful, there's a powerful graphic language in each and every word, very distinctive one as well. So, what role does representation play in your work, and how is it churned out?
I mean, it really depends on what am I representing, right? So, I mean, if it's color, a lot of these concepts are very abstract and very hard to actually give form to. So I depend a lot on texture and color. For example, I think the vegetarianism one was quite clear, like it's green and red because veg and non-veg is something so clear in our head. It also was around violence related to vegetarianism. So the red works in like dual ways in that sense. So the marriage story, for example, you have the rose, which is symbolic of love in our country. And religion is, I wanted to show something very spiritual, and you usually associate this hero event with something otherworldly and religious. So yeah, that was the reason. But each piece has a very specific color choice related to the products.
So you said these are reports for government.
Yeah, different bodies. Some of them are international data sources, but each one has a different data source.
Okay. Government of India.
Different bodies of, yeah.
Government of India.
Yeah, Government of India, yeah.
I wish people from government could use this more.
I really wish to.
And the second question, is there any government, state government or central government or any department that's connected or you try to connect with them?
No, I haven't. I haven't. I mean, even to write to them, they're not very responsive over emails. Their websites are quite bad, so I would love to connect.
I would not. Real hard work, but they're looking for talented people.
Yeah.
The problem is the connect, the communication.
Yeah.
We're talking about communication.
Yeah.
Right. So I wish you connect with especially women and child development, I would say. Maybe
Yes.
state-
Yeah, sure. I have so every time I do a report or I go to my perception about that topic, and even in rural and urban areas, for example. So so
Any sort of designer for that matter, will want A. And what was the thought process entirely to delve into the side of the social reports, women anxiety, the entire thing, while also pursuing a very active design language, because the entire communication language was absolutely amazing. So,
thank you, and I think you answered your question yourself. Nobody else is doing it. It has to be done, and it is a very big gap in the market. It is a very big gap in the market. So I studied in London, and there you see reports which are well designed. You see people engaged, and there you see reports which are well designed. You see people engaged with. When I came back to India, and India being such a data-rich country, nobody was doing it, and even the reports you published are, there's a certain type of graphic design which is associated with development reports or the government reports and NGOs. I really wanted to break that. I wanted to use my way of designing or my aesthetic in design and sort of talk about these topics. So there's more interesting. I'm interested in all of this, and I think it was also my attempt in understanding this in a way I would want to do.
You and the design team.
This is just me. Everything. Because then, I think some of them actually took a while. Yeah.
The intersection there are well thought of we request everyone who is from the design community, especially both.
Basically, a representation of data that a music company would use and present to us in such a fun way. It's something that all of us have really enjoyed, the way in which data has been put, and that's all due to the agency of design that would come and bridge that gap for us. And perhaps it's a trigger for more and more designers to, in their own respective fields, in their own respective interests, to pursue data and look at the ways in which it can, both qualitative and quantitative for that matter, and see the ways in which it can resonate with people and make an impact.
I was just singing what my teacher sang without even understanding what I was singing and how it related to the world around me. And I wish to change that with my project Swar Petri and with the help of a little crow called Kara. Hello, am I audible? Yeah. So, we've all heard about dancing, the legendary musician who could build storms, evaporate oceans, and enchant wild animals. But this story is about an ordinary crow called Kaga, who wants to sing like that. And she tries singing one day but fails miserably. The sparrow faints, the dog starts barking, the cow goes crazy. And worst of all, Tansen shuts his window. So you can light pop-ups in this book to reveal secrets hidden within. So here's dancing behind his window. And Musika tells Kaga about the creators of the seven swars. So according to our ancient scriptures, the seven swars, Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Dha Ni, they come from the sounds of various animals. So Kaga goes in search of these animals to learn about music from them. And along with that, Musika also gives Kaga a swar. So you have this instrument with which you can play the seven swars. We have so Kaga plays the first swar, Sa, and he follows the sound. And that's how she comes across the peacock, who is the creator of Sa. And each swar also has a particular mood and color associated with it. So you can light the pop-up to see the color of the swar. So here's Sa, which is green in color. Then Kaga comes across Re the Papiha, which is red in color. Ga, the golden goat. And finally, Kaga comes across Ni, the elephant, who is multicolored. And each of these animals take Kaga on a quest to help her understand the practical aspects of music. So I'd like you to come on a quest with me. We will try and play the colors displayed here to guess which melody we represent. So I have these bells with me, each representing one of the swars. So could I have 5 people join me on this quest? Any 5 people? Preferably someone who hasn't already tried this. It's not difficult, you get the hang of it. Anyone else?
There she is. And what about you? One more here.
Alright. So just try and ring the bell, you just hold it up in the air and just give it a shake. Just once, yeah, just shake it once. Yeah, alright, so when I point at your color, you play the corresponding bell, alright? Color outside, right? Color outside, yes. Okay, let's give it a try. Can anyone guess which melody that is? Perfect. That is brilliant. So let's try singing and playing it along. छोटी सी आशा मस्ती भर मन की छोटी सी आशा चांद तारों को छूने की आशा उड़ने की आशा दिल है छोटा सा. So yes, this is one of the ways in which you can just have fun with these words and get rid of your inhibition of learning classical music. And what happens is, as Kaga completes each quest, the book adds a color, starts off black and white, and slowly turns words. And the book comes a full circle where Kaga is now Musikar and helps to understand music. So this is the basic try to integrate different music concepts through this form of a story and interactive elements. And I'd just like to end by singing one song for you which resonates with the spirit of the project.
भीगे होठों से झिलमिलाए गाता है साहिल गाता है बहता पानी गाता है ये दिल सुन सारे गामा पाधा नी सारे आवारा भवरे जो दे हो
Thank you for this beautiful, beautiful presentation. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a scope for questions after this. There's a lot for us to absorb from this performance and this presentation. We have DNH, and representing DNH, we have Sharan and Shreya.
Hi, I'm Sharan and she's Shreya. So we together have started babies. The history of graphic and text is very much intertwined around the world with this idea. And we invested to take forward this idea of using narratives and textiles to communicate a larger idea. In terms of words or threads, they've always been used to bring them together. And day and age for us is like a medium through which we want to tell those stories. So in a short way, we say that it works the intersection of text, textile, and seen through the lens of time. And I think Shreya will tell a little more of what we do.
Hi, so currently we are exploring, like as you mentioned, so we are making clothes under 2 segments. So what we presented here is our bygones, which are mostly made from found fabrics. So right now we are exploring the kantha fabrics and headstock jacquard, and that is what we've put here. And there's another segment under which we make clothes, which is made to order, because we really want people to be very conscious about what they're buying. So sustainability is not USP or something that we want to. It's not that we want to talk about it, or I think it's now given, and it is not it's like a prerequisite. So that is why we are following make to order and using dead stock. So in future we look forward to exploring more crafts or looking at textiles which we can actually bring out narratives for both graphics and textiles.
Okay, I'll start with the first question. So what's been intriguing me particularly, saw some pieces which were, how is it that you negotiate this sort of temporality, which is intrinsic to the work, as opposed to the permanence that a lot of other fashion labels tend to pursue, that this is a product that they make and it's reproducible, and a lot of people can share it, whereas there is a temporal aspect to your work where nothing will ever be in the exact same replica. So 2 people will maybe share the same ethos of a brand, but not the exact same thing.
So to answer that, I would say that these are made, like some of these would be 20 years old, or they would be 40 years old, sometimes they're even 80 years old. So here the idea is not to think about how it can be reproduced, but also to promote the value that when somebody is buying the clothes, they are more attached to it, because they will know that this thing is only made for them, and in the world there is only one of a kind. So it can never be made again. And it's not like the textiles are similar, so we do come across with fabrics which are similar, and in that sense it can be fulfilled, like to talk about the commercial aspect of it. But other than that, we do want to promote the value where you are attached to your clothes and you find the, like you see the value in it, that there's only one of a kind.
Yeah, I think just to add on the temporality of it, it's not like it doesn't have a temporality. As she said, like some of these fabrics are like 40 years old, 8 years old. So they come with their own history and they're sort of moved across time. Like I said, like we're interested in the time aspect of it. It's moved across regions, hands, so much different work. Like the texture that you sort of see coming out of here, it's a lot of it has come from the hands it has passed through and the various treatments it's gone through. So that part of temporality is just like we don't see it when it gets bought as being somewhere at an end product, that something that you have is, you know, it's reached its, the jacket is, or whatever it has reached its end point. maybe down the line in this country, passing down of clothes is kind of a cultural phenomenon for us, especially common among women, of passing on, and even certain memorial textiles as well. So that way the temporality with the, let's say, the scale.
My products here. Mostly these are toys made from Channapatna on lathe turning process. You can see here the wood is turned on the lathe and tools are used to sculpture them, and the color is applied while it turns, and based on the designs given they make the toys. So I explored this as a student of NID and understanding the cluster. From that day on, I started designing these toys. It's a basic kit for children, adults also. So these are made and on now these two are exhibited in Spring Fair UK. It was also a client project, and these were some birds. You know, as you all know, this is Star Wars character, and this is stacking toy. So all these toys are made with non-toxic lacquer, which is applied on top of wood. And stack them to the board. All of them. Yeah.
Yes, do the kids in the front here have any questions?
How is this different to the normal Channapatna toys?
Normally, the artisans have been following traditional designs, which are little bit intricate. So I try to reduce the curves and make it little minimal and little more abstract. As you can see here, the tree or water droplet, I try to make it little more minimal and abstract. So I think that's a difference you see.
Could you tell us a little bit about how you make your toys safe for in terms of materials as well as their durability?
Normally paints are applied on top of the wood. These are applied when it's made. Due to friction that the lac gets applied on top of it and it does not come out. Even if the child licks it, it won't come out like a normal paint which is being usually applied. The Asian paints or any enamel paint, it comes out as
in mainstream planning practices. Now, that's a tall order to ask. Definitely, let's establish that first. From time immemorial, and to be specific, Delhi Master Plan, the first Master Plan, which was released in 1962, had this process which, power was concentrated, centralized decision making had a flow which was top down, and till date it remains the same. That power gradient remains the same. So I have a question for the floor. If people were to plan places, why do you think people are required in planning their places? Anyone, just a word or a phrase? Why is it important for people to be engaged in planning?
Because they are the ones who have to use this space.
Okay. Anyone else? I mean, there's no right or wrong. I'm not judging you. Just wondering, is it even important for people to be engaged in planning?
I'm going to say that sometimes people may not be equipped to think about what would suit them best.
Right. Thank you for those answers. I'll answer that question slightly differently. I'll answer in a way where the question will be framed as though what will happen to our cities if people weren't engaged in planning their places. Our cities are constantly grappling with the ever-evolving urban environment due to forces of urbanization, migration, climate change, other externalities. We've had the pandemic. So, since power has been centralized and it's been in the hands of few, it automatically also benefits few, and that few is, upper class, upper caste, able-bodied, heterosexual male, and the remainder is not a homogeneous group. There are a bunch of other groups who should be part of planning as well. And because there is a lack of diversity in the planning paradigm, it doesn't reflect the urban communities of today and their urban realities and their everyday realities. So that major drift between the current planning paradigm and how governance systems are functioning at the grassroots level is something that we're trying to bridge. So essentially what we do at City Sabha is we're co-creating usable and active public spaces for all. It sounds very straightforward. Our mission statement has been just that. But due to several actors and stakeholder groups, there are complexities in governance structures. Like I said, there's been the when we started our journey back in 2019, we started with this question of what are public spaces, right? And it be different for us are the primary driver of our perceptions of public spaces. So, for example, the altered perception of the city if you were to drive a car or you were driven around, or that you were, say, living with disabilities. So my point being that because we're such a heterogeneous group of people, we cannot frame public spaces to be one particular way. And that's why these numbers and the quality of public spaces of our city. What we see here is essentially one project that we did in Raghuveer Nagar, which is situated in northwest Delhi. And it's predominantly a street vendors neighborhood hailing from Gujarat, Bihar, Bengal, parts of UP. And the reason why we wanted to work with this particular group is because their work and mobility patterns is distinct. They ferry around different neighborhoods in search of second-hand garments, waste from that's what they pick up. And in exchange, they sell, they don't sell, that's the wrong word. There's a barter system where they are giving utensils in exchange of those second-hand clothes, and they refurbish it back in their neighborhoods and then sell it in a daily market called Budewali Mandi, which is the largest second-hand informal market in Delhi. And I think it's the second largest in all of India. Now, the reason why I wanted to work with this particular group is also because their exposure to the public realm is over 15 hours a day. And that's the reason why. And when we spoke about gender-based violence, it's not just men ogling or cases of violence. It's the state. It's the state that has had a very indifferent approach to them, even though they are protected by the law, which is the Street Vendors Act of 2014. So what we did is, when we went into the community, we had this place quality index, which in a way worked very well for researchers and practitioners, but there was very little participation by the community. So we scrapped that tool, which was developed in-house, And then we developed this generative methodology where we introduced tools such as scene making, photo voice, counter approaches to mapping, walking interviews, and soundscaping. And these are the outputs that you see over here, which took about 15 months to develop and co-create. And excerpts of the Kata are also placed here, so feel free to go through them and ask us questions or write to us if you're short on time. And the other display is to do with other small scale interventions that we've done across Delhi. Again, I don't want to get into it just because of time. And the second part of our showcase is the interactive one, which is public facing and interactive in nature, where we're positioning people, you, at the center of it, where we're asking you to essentially write your experiences, perceptions of public spaces, places in Delhi, so that you can contribute to the place inventory. Now, what is place inventory? Place inventory is a spatial oral repository of the diversity of places in Delhi, and document and give us your suggestions. And I think I'll end by saying that the core emotion of doing the space inventory is care and belongingness. So I'll leave with a few open-ended questions because that is meant to continue a dialogue. How many of us belong to the city? Who cares for us? What makes you feel included in places? And who has the right to the city? And with that, I hope I've left with more questions than answers.
Where did you find it? Where did you find it?
Thank you, Sarina. Are there any questions?
Just wanted to find out, you also look at participatory planning and of course bottom-up approach.
I'm not acquainted with architecture planning. Participatory planning and research encapsulates our engagement in every project that we do on ground.
If I may ask, what is the kind of feedback you have received thus far on the designs that you've on the interventions you've made? From the users or from external agencies as well?
I mean, besides the positives, I'll tell you a critique. Our approach is so grassroots. So, of course, there are systems that we can put into place, but we cannot assume that we have the same output.
So it says Seva Delhi Context. Can you please elaborate?
Because we're not a community-based organization, we partnered with Seva that had its roots established in Ranveer for the last 25 years. And that just helped us get introduced to people there a lot quicker, and they also helped us in giving us a space to do the interventions, and they also helped us. Yeah. Oh, Seva is a huge organization.
I know.
So I'm sorry. Oh, you're from Seva?
No, I'm not from Seva. I know Seva.
Oh, yeah.
He does Seva all the time. So, anyway, my concern was Pradeep Sarjeva used to create those earlier.
Yeah.
So I just want to know who's the person who, it's you who's creating those spaces or
So we use their community space, which acts as an anchorage point for a lot of these women to avail certain services, because they give out, ID proofs and, they do basic mobilizing. We went in there to activate a space and to do this project. So essentially we just shared a physical space, but in terms of their projects and our projects, there weren't really any common ground.
No, it's a very challenging work on ground, dealing with a lot of, including administration, which is not willing to cooperate at any point. So anyway, good work.
Thank you, Selena. With that, we'll move on to the next exhibitor. So we have Sri Gupta from Foundry.
Hi. So firstly, I think I want to thank Design by Design for such an amazing space. I think I've always wanted to display my jewelry in a way that it is right now, and it's been a perfect stage for that. The whole journey, I think, started off with discovering this material, and it was all by an accident. The material and the process was something that caught my attention. 3D printing as a process was so streamlined in terms of manufacturing and prototyping. And then from taking the material, the next step was how do we convert it into jewelry, and what aspects can we add to make it more familiar. Like jewelry has always been something that is an adornment. It needs to be, it needs to have certain sparkling in it, or it needs to catch attention. And if you look at the material itself, 3D printed material, it's a very industrial material. So the challenge for me was...
So what we're seeing across various exhibitors over here is that there is a shift in the way in which things are made now, where we are privileging the handmade products. There is a visible trend across the exhibits here as well, that handmade processes are coming back into the mainstream, and they're being preferred and marketed and such things. So how do you, through the technological process that guides most of the production that you have, how do you see yourself in that particular market? How do you position yourself?
I think with this also it's half an hour. There is a bit of the main canvas, let's say, is 3D printed, but what you add to it is actually what creates the magic, and that is done by hand. So I think it's the merger of the two that is there both ways. And I do see the difference that people they have a more appreciation for it. So it actually depends on after the pieces are printed, what do I do with it and how much I work with it.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next exhibit. Thank you, Sri. So next from Zoe Design Life, we have Arohi.
Hello, I'm Arohi from Zoe Design, and we are an architectural lighting design consultancy, and also we design decorative luminaires. I myself have studied product design and architectural lighting design for my master's. And we at Zoe use light as a material for creative exploration, and it's what all of our work is centered around. So in this exhibit we're showcasing also the product end of it, but also illuminating spaces, which is architectural lighting. Our journey started with product, where we very modern and Indian approach to product design, where we started the first collection based on Indian spices such as cardamoms, cloves, ginger, and others. And also one of the first products we launched was this tap, which is called the Inspiration Null, where null, of course, is tap, and it sort of dims on and off. And some of the other products that we have here today is the Ikat Wave Lamp, which showcases the handcrafted woven fabric of Ikat, which is sandwiched in acrylic and bent with brass, and the brass is of course also functional. It's carrying the current in the lamp, and the suspension and the electrical wires are sort of integrated in this lamp. So there is also a lot of technicality in all of our products. And the newer vertical in our brand is architectural lighting design, which is the art and science of illuminating spaces and designing spaces that are it's the art and science of designing well-lit spaces, which is extremely important because light regulates our circadian rhythm, which is also our sleep and wake cycle. It affects our mood, it affects our behavior, and also our stress levels and our productivity. But yeah, that's the practice, that's what we do. We work along with architects and interior designers, and also are involved in stage lighting projects, and yeah, that's it. That's the end of that.
Thank you. Could you tell us a little bit about the tap? Did you pick up an old tap or did you make it yourself?
No, this is something that we casted actually in 7 parts of. We actually casted this by 3D printing it, modeling it and 3D printing it, and then casting it in brown, then assembled together, and then even integrating a dimmer into it was a huge challenge.
I think it would be interesting if the tap was also functional, you know. The water went into the tap, that would have been very interesting.
Yeah, true. Actually, about the tap, the idea was to create something that is very unexpected in the environment. So the idea was to take something from the outdoors and exteriors and sort of, you know how we see these pipes running along buildings that are clamped onto the building? That was actually the idea. So you clamp it along your desk or your bar or wherever, and yeah, you have light going out instead of water.
Sure.
So you worked with product design in general, but you also worked with lighting in particular. How would you say designing with light in mind or designing a light source is different from designing a solid object?
I think initially, because the practice was based around product design, there was a lot of focus on materials and exploring materials. So there was wood and cane and bamboo to different types of plastic and different types of metal. And now there's a shift where we're integrating architectural lighting. So there's more of an understanding about, and there's a sensitivity towards light and how we can manipulate it to sort of fill up our spaces. So I would say that's the sort of shift that's coming to the practice now.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to the next exhibit.
Sweet. She's not it.
We have the Design for Good by Arundhati as performer from University. Yeah.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for surviving this marathon, and thank you for being here to witness all of our work. I'm Arundhati and I run the social design division of Tasmania, which is called Design for Good. Do you guys know what social design is? Or if you could take a guess? Why guess? I mean, do I sit on Instagram all day and follow people? I get that a lot. I'm like, oh, you're a social designer, so like you're on social media. We do use social media as a tool, yes, but social design is essentially using the principles, the several disciplines within the design field to solve social problems. So within our studio, we do design research, social branding, and impact films, we create products, all sorts of things. And the 3 products that we have, the 3 projects that we have on display tonight are the Space for Her campaign that is commissioned by PVR Nest, which is the CSR division of PVR Cinemas. Kala Center, which is a social design project, again a branding project for PVR Nest to brand and create an impact film around the skilling center that they have initiated. And then we have the story of Kanharam, which is another impact film, a fundraiser that was commissioned by the Kumarappa Institute of Dance Swaraj in Rajasthan with TRF, which is another non-profit that's based out of Gurgaon. Designed for Good actually started as a podcast in 2019, which is when I was working in healthcare advertising. And it turned out to be really boring, the job, and I just wanted to switch to something that made me feel more fulfilled and like more in touch with what I wanted to do, which is, to use my creative skills to give back, to solve problems, to be able to communicate with people. And so I started interviewing several creatives and designers, and some of the people on the podcast so far have been Fatima Bhutto, who's a writer, Sujitra Vijayan, again a writer, Alicia Souza, she's an illustrator. I'm not sure if you are familiar with AOC, she is, she's amazing. So the guy who, and the studio that actually created the winning campaign for the Bronx, his name is Scott Starrett. He was one of the first few people on my show, and he spoke about how you can use the tools, the persuasive tools of advertising, which is what I had studied, to influence change and to speak to people and impact the world around you. So that's how it started. And over the past year and a half, we've actually been taking up design work, and now we're a studio under design. So we're looking at this very glam card here, which is a product from the Space for Her campaign. So the Space for Her campaign is a research. This shawl is really innovative. It's a product from our research, and we spoke with upwards of 1,000 women to understand what their idea of an ideal public space would be. And it's a lot like, Saneha just spoke so wonderfully about how difficult it is to kind of encapsulate all of these desires and expectations. But our pilot location is actually Anupam PVR, which is where PVR Nest has a pink toilet. And this pink toilet program is spread across the city, but not a lot of people access it the way that they would like for it to be accessed. So PVR Nest is like, how can we use this as an amenity which has such wonderful things like, feminine hygiene products. They have an on-ground female staff member there for 12 hours. They have a nursing station, a changing room, and all of it is free, and not a lot of people know about it. So we kind of helped them with the research to come up with 6 tools and 12 recommendations that could be implemented in Anupam PVR subtly and to kind of potentially turn it into an inclusive public space for women. And some of the stuff that people spoke to us about was pretty crazy, simple things like 3 levels of lighting. How just a place being floodlit is not good enough because that makes you really alert and conscious. But if there are 3 levels of lighting, you feel a little bit more at ease. Then simple navigation, like to ground yourself in a place, like to know where the exits are, to know where the toilets are, to know where parking is. All of these things are so essential. And a tool that we came up with is a credibility mark. So credibility mark would be like, an ISI mark or an FSSAI mark that you look at in food products, or if you're buying an appliance, you know that this is a credible product. And people were like, that would be pretty interesting to have a credibility mark in a public space so that we can look at it and we know that it's safe. This cart is actually a product which we wanted to launch, and we launched in August along with PVR again, and it's a livelihood cart, and currently it displays the work that the women at the Kala Center create. So these 2 projects kind of like met halfway last year, and this cart is at the Kirti Nagar Center of the Kala Center of PVR's facility, and it houses like all of these products that the women at Kala make. And I just want to kind of introduce you to this small interactive element that we have, which is this no judgment zone. So one of the girls that we had at a workshop was like, in my ideal public space, I would like a physically marked no judgment zone, where I can stand and nobody can judge me for what I'm wearing, for how I'm laughing, for who I'm talking to. And it's kind of silly to think that if you mark placed physically, people will not judge you. But it's worth thinking about because we are constantly looking at people and thinking of how they're walking and who they're with and all of these things. So I would invite you eventually to stand here and write down your mannat for an ideal public space and put it on our mannat infinity so we can collect all your ideas and understand what your ideal public space looks like. There are small tools here, like a few things that I can't necessarily like show because of costing time. But we have this visual tool which is a game, a board game that we created. It's Space for a Sound CD. So you play the game and you kind of discover some of the data points that we came up with, which is that that women sort of expressed only 4% women feel safe when they step out at night, and these women are probably privileged, they probably come in cars, so 96% women don't feel safe. 59% women want designated spaces for leisure and learning. So there are spaces outdoors that they can utilize to like learn something or sit and work, which have Wi-Fi and enough lighting, charging points. They will feel a lot more included outdoors. And 72% women wanted light, so dimly-lit spots are immediately like you associate them with spaces that you don't necessarily want there. And then I can speak a little bit more about Kala, which is the skilling center that we branded for PBR, and that is it's an acronym, so it's a center for knowledge and learning assistance, and we created a film which is also on YouTube. It's always right here on this tablet if you would like to see. That's mostly it. I don't want to say anything, but
that was really long.
Okay. Can you tell us how you brought this car here? You drive it?
It was a task.
so we brought it up the the elevator. The elevator.
There's a ramp.
There was a ramp. The service route, and there was a ramp, and you had kind of like push it down so it could enter that door, which is shorter than this. It was a task, so now it's here. But that was, that's how we.
Okay, let's move on to the next exhibit then.
Yes.
The
Last exhibit for today. We have with us Ravista Mehra.
Thank you, and thank you all for staying here to the end to see the exhibition. So I'm Ravista Mehra. I'm an educator and visual storyteller based between New Delhi and London. My practice is split between a professional practice where I do graphic design and an academic practice where I like to challenge and question the information that we consume on a daily basis. As a graphic designer, I have a love for words and images, and that's been there since I was a kid. I've never really been able to accept a definition just as it stands. I've always had the need to sort of redefine it for myself so that it makes more sense and just be really clear when I'm communicating. So that's kind of how I got to graphic design, I would say. The work that I have here today, I wanted to not display just one project that I'm working on, but the process in which I work, which is questioning, dismantling, and rebuilding. So whether that be in my professional practice or in my academic, I like to begin with those steps. So the installation here is called Primitive, and it's exploring how the use of the English language is still colonizing us without us actually knowing that it is. So we're using the tools of the colonizer to describe ourselves, to talk about ourselves, and without knowing we're putting ourselves in boxes. So the way that I work, I don't really like to tell people what to think, but I like them to think for themselves and question the information that they have. So using the case study of the word primitive, I wanted to sort of have the audience question words in which they use to describe themselves or their culture specifically, because that's what my practice is based around. So on this side, you have a few questions, of
who is allowed to tell whose story, right? We're always consuming information, but do we really question who has written it, who has filmed it, right? Who is marketing it? Those are all very big questions because it's coming to us, and without thinking, we're sort of integrating it in our lives. And then I like to dismantle, so that pretty much consists of a lot of research, looking at what currently exists, verbally and visually, because I believe that, you know, as a graphic designer, you're taught the tools of putting together a word and an image and how powerful that really is. And that's something I'm really aware of. And in order to undo the stereotype, you kind of have to use the same tools but flip it, which is why also the installation is in English, and a lot of people have asked in the last few weeks if I'm colonizing English and why isn't it in Hindi or another language. Firstly, because not everybody in India speaks Hindi, and secondly, because the point of the installation is to get you to question the English language as a tool. So, you know, I like to pose questions to the audience. I like to have different conversations, or at least get people to start thinking about something, right? The point of my work is to get a conditioned mind to change their perspective on what they see. And, you know, even if all you take away from this entire installation is when you're reading something and you come across the word primitive, you question it, you know, or you come across the word developing, you know, things that I use, words that I use to describe people of color, then I think that's pretty successful. So the way that the word primitive currently exists is in a negative light, which not everybody who uses it knows. So on this side, I've sort of used the definition from the Oxford English Dictionary, which is where there's a lot of ways in which you can start digging deeper into what that means. And if you look at synonyms, then, you know, it's things like illiterate, evolutionary, childlike, oriental, which is, again, things that we don't think about that much. So to undo that, on the other side, I have projects that I've been working on for the last 4 or 5 years, and I have my own definition of primitive. So, you know, the last stage of my work is sort of reclaiming, which is in essence rebranding as a graphic designer. So how can I take what exists currently and how can I take that space? How can the people who are being spoken about take that space? So most of my work is in collaboration with people from around the world, and it doesn't always have to be other designers or creatives, but I work with writers, historians, you know, people from all fields. And it's very important that people of all walks of life, different professions, understand the work. So I refrain from using academic words, even though I have used the word decolonize here, but I've defined it on the other side, just so people can understand what I mean by it. Right? Academics lives in this like higher place where, and then we need to bring it down to be able to speak to people who it actually applies to. So the dignified manner of people of color. Thank you.
This may be slightly longer answer. So, how do you design a curriculum based on words and that also situated in the global north? Yeah.
And if I can just add to the question, have you explored working with schools, for example, which is where people learn language and trying to transform what is taught and practice?
So I'll answer both of those questions together. I currently run workshops, so I have not reached a school I can design an entire curriculum for college, but I'm allowed to teach workshops where you begin to question the words that you're using. So for example, you know, when keyword really mean, and you have to dig slightly deeper research, right? You have to see different perspectives. If you're talking about India, for example, are you looking at writers from the West because you're currently selling to the UK, right? Or are you looking at writers from India? If you're looking at where are these sources coming from, where is your reference coming from, who is telling the story? I think that's one of the biggest questions that I ask my audience and my students, right? Where are you getting this information from? Because that is where our understanding begins. I would love to work with schools, so currently I teach a couple of courses in Delhi where I work with 13 to 17-year-olds that are in the process of going to design or art school. It's limited to that right now because that's sort of my field, and I like to pose these questions in a very watered down manner so that it doesn't feel like, you know, they're being engaged in a political or social way, but more in just a way of having them question what they know and why they think they know it, and having that why answer is really important. Because most of us, just consume information and go with whatever is in front of us, but it's really about pausing and thinking once or twice about what am I reading, where is this placed, is this a right answer, is the Oxford English Dictionary the only place I can go and get information, right? What happens if I don't? All questions. So most of my practice is about questions, whether it's in academics or with kids.
One question. So, since as I see your education from abroad, you've been around people from various countries, and decolonization itself is a process that a lot of countries, in fact, in today's time are approaching in different ways. So, how do you differentiate pursue such a process in the context of India as opposed to engaging with some other people around?
That's a really good question, and honestly, this is my first exhibition in India. As you said, I've been abroad for the last 10 years, so most of my work has been facing a Western audience, and that's a very different conversation because decolonization there is charged in a different way because the West colonized the East in essence, right? So there is again a level of sensitivity with which you want to approach an audience, because if you offend them or if it's too angry, then they won't engage with it. And the point is not to put blame or guilt, but to have a conversation about what can be done next. First acknowledging the past and then asking what can be done next. So it's about how do you frame that question. And over here, like when I was putting together this work, so I made this work just for this exhibition, it didn't exist before. I've had this research ongoing for about 5-6 years. But we were colonized, and for example, my grandmother's generation doesn't still understand why they prefer light skin or why they want to use skin lightening creams. So it's about also acknowledging that you were colonized, which takes a little bit of power away. But again, you have to do it in a sensitive way, and you have to take a risk. So, and in terms of different parts of the world, decolonization, that's why I define things very specifically, because I can only speak from my lens. And I encourage people to look at it through their lens, and there is no right answer. But also reading academics from that country, for example, Leela Gandhi, people, for example, if it's South Africa, then reading Fanon, like you have to see what has come before you to get an understanding. That's not the right answer, but that's a place to begin.
Are there any other questions on this one?
Is AI a threat in your practice, or is it a tool for you? Things like ChatGPT, generating text.
I don't think it's a challenge because I'm not focusing on the answer, I'm focusing on the question. So if my work is not, it's more about getting you to question what you know. Now I don't know if the student is then going to go on ChatGPT and take an answer, but I'm going to ask them why. So, when a student comes back to me at the end of the day, they have to have answered at least 5 why questions. So if ChatGPT can do that for them, then that's great. But I haven't yet encountered that problem. I see it as a tool, right? Like if you want to work through it, shorten your time frame in which you're working, absolutely, right? It gives you more time to think, more time to research, more time to question. So I do.
Language that has already existed, right? So one may question the sources to engage in a process that could be an issue because the words that you will be again sourced from several foreign authors and their perceptions of your own context.
Sure.
So yeah.
No, I agree. Because it doesn't have a geography. I think it's ChatGPT.
I also want to.
I like to know where my.
Any other questions? Okay then, so we conclude the 14th annual Design by Design 20under35 exhibition for this year, 2024. We'd like to thank